Hello, Tubeland. Welcome to another episode of Hear This Now. So, today, a very interesting topic divorce. When people talk about marriage, all of a sudden these days is divorce is the next word that's come after that. So, is it really a bad thing? That is what we're going to discuss today. So, Emerson, start us off now, this divorce conversation. Where are we going first?
All right, guys. Good night. Good night. So the first question I'd like to pose to you all is, to me, maybe the most obvious question. We want to know, what is your take on divorce in terms of whether it's right or it's wrong, and what are the guidelines for divorce, if any exist? Like what do we take into consideration? Is there anything that we could follow, anything that we need to know where this is concerned to determine what kind of decisions we could make and why? So where's all your views on that?
Well, divorce is not a good thing at all. When God put man and woman together, they wasn't supposed to not be together. Right? That's my take, and that is what the Bible say. And it have a little guideline. In the Bible, they talk about in the case of sexual immorality, then you could divorce. So that it would be my guideline. Of course, we know there are other things why you shouldn't be with somebody when you marry them and things will happen. But my guideline right now for this question is what the Bible says in the case of sexual immorality. Other than that, stay married.
Yeah, right. So obviously we know that the Bible is the guideline book, right? Yes, divorce wrong, but in my opinion, sometimes it's necessary to do, right? Because, well, I will discuss that later down in the show, right? And I will bring up certain points and certain scriptures I have to prove my cases. You understand what I'm saying? I think sometimes, although that is not what the intention was supposed to be, you're supposed to stay with the person long term and whatever the case may be, is that in some cases you don't know who you're married to or who you're spending your life with until you reach uh some years down the road, a little further down the road, you doesn't know who you really lie down in bed next to you. Sometimes you lie down in bed next to the enemy, right? And no amount of forgiveness will get you to you know live easy. So sometimes it's best to divorce than somebody end up in the worst case scenario dead or in debt or in some kind of case, right? That is just my view on the matter.
For me, I think I agree with both of you. I think there are a few or maybe a couple instances where divorce is necessary. Aside from Shan mentioned infidelity, I think abuse is one. Like, I'm talking actual abuse, not people like, oh my god, he talks bad to me. Like, I'm talking actual abuse, right? I think in those cases, okay, it may be necessary. And in terms of guidelines, I mean, I've never been married. Okay, so I don't know. So I've never been divorced. But one thing I will say is try your best. Try your best to not make it ugly. I know in certain, depending on who you're dealing with, it's not an option to not make it ugly. But if you can, for the sake of, well, yourself, your peace, and your family, whoever else may be affected, try to make it as respectful. The ending, let's not be catty about it. Let's try to have some respect in there. I know it may be difficult, but I think that's the only guideline that comes to mind when I think about the process of divorce, because I think it tends to get very ugly and mean. and just oh, and everybody gets affected. So I say, try to keep it as cordial as possible.
All right. So my 2 cents on this is divorce wrong? Yes and no. Um, Divorce definitely wasn't the intent for mankind. Neither was sin. You know, when mankind was created, the intent wasn't for us to sin and do your own thing. God obviously had a master plan in place, and sadly, he had to make provisions. So when we fall short of our master plan, and I think divorce is one of those things. One of those things that is a insurance policy for in case people don't hold up their end of the bargain and they don't do what's expected of them in the union that God designed to be a permanent thing, you know, because people change, people fall short, you know, people give into temptation, they they get put in bondage by sin. Sometimes one partner doing the right thing and next one decide that they're good. You know, so it's a complex matter and I think divorce is one of them, for lack of a better term, necessary evils, you know, to deal with in order for people to have a future after, you know, the lifelong commitment you make that's supposed to be lifelong falls apart. Because without that, you'll just be stuck in a lifelong commitment that is no longer a commitment with no options. So, you know, divorce is a necessary thing, but it's not a good thing. You know, Malachi says in Malachi it says God hates divorce. I am the Lord. He was very stern about it. You don't have much scriptures that more stern about any issue than how stern he was where his take on divorce was, I hate divorce, I am the Lord. That's a real tough statement, you know what I mean? So we know that is definitely not the intent. Where the guidelines are concerned, when I posed the question, I was thinking in terms of what are the questions we need to ask to determine whether it's okay to divorce. So I guess Sean raised it where it said, you know, except for marital unfaithfulness. And besides that, there are actually a couple other scenarios that the Bible raised that it's considered acceptable to divorce. First Corinthians, I'll just breeze through them. First Corinthians 7:12 to 15. But to the rest, I, not the Lord, say. So this is Paul speaking, and he's given his opinion. He's saying this is his opinion with respect to marital situations and whether it's okay to stay or to depart. And well, it made it to the Bible, and this is my opinion. Once it's in here, that means it's no longer just Paul speaking, it's God speaking. But this was Paul giving his opinion on the matter. So the rest, I, not the Lord, say, if any brother has a wife who does not believe and she is willing to live with him, let him not divorce her. And a woman who has a husband who does not believe, if he is willing to live with her, let her not divorce him. So being an unbeliever doesn't qualify you to divorce somebody. If your husband is an unbeliever, you stay with your husband. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Otherwise, your children would be unclean. But now they are holy. So that's an interesting thing to discuss. But if the unbeliever departs, this is the part here. If the unbeliever departs, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases. But God has called us to live in peace. God has called us to peace. So in this instance, they're saying, in addition to a scenario where you have marital unfaithfulness as the cause, but that is the universal one most people know about. It also saying here if you have a unbelieving husband or wife and they decide to abandon the marriage, that you're no longer under bondage in a case like that. So you're free basically in that situation. Not everybody agrees with that, but to me, right here in the word. So that to me, those are the two guidelines, and anything else outside of that is to me, in my opinion, divorce is not permitted. Even in an instance where you have abusive situations, which is my next question. So unless anybody else want to respond to what I was just saying, we can move on to the next question. That's appropriate. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Right. So the next question is, so now that we give our views on whether we think divorce is right or wrong, and we all give our opinions as to what constitutes um, a right to divorce according to the word. What about other situations? You know, for instance, what about if you're being abused? Is it okay to get divorced in that scenario? Well, Krista, you give a little bit of your opinion on that, so I'm interested to hear what else you have to say.
Yes. Why would I stay in an abusive marriage? Am I looking to die? No. If you're being abused, you don't sit down and take abuse and say, "Oh well, God will stop him." Whoop. Use wisdom. Use wisdom. Somebody's beating you. Are you going to wait for them to kill you? No. Get up and get out. If they're abusing you even mentally, whoop, nope. Get up and get out. Abuse, lock it off one time. Don't sit down there and think that God will be okay. God will. Nope. Use wisdom. Bust out.
Yeah, so if your wife or your husband beating the hell out of you, ride out one time, right? And to qualify my statement, Galatians chapter 5, 19 and 21 talk about the kind of individuals that will not inherit God's kingdom. And one of them being a lover of violence. And it end on 21 saying that you will not inherit God's kingdom if you practice any of these things. So if your wife or your husband practicing violence on you, then guess what? I think that is grounds enough for divorce. Because yes, God hate divorce, but this is just my interpretation here, people. Don't go on what Aaron Mitchell say. This is just my interpretation here. If God inspire people to say, hey, here's the scene. Violence, people who like violence, people who like sexual immorality, whatever the case may be, will not inherit God's kingdom, then you can't tell me that God sit down up in heaven and he going and tell me to stay in a marriage if my wife lashing me and beating me and doing all these kind of things. When he for himself inspire people to say that, hey, violent people will not inherit God's kingdom and people who practice violence. And the next scripture to put in your bank too
The
is
back
First
end.
John. Yeah, is First John chapter 3, 4 to 8, right? Which talks about the practices of sin, right? And it basically talk about if you continue sinning without seeking forgiveness, then guess what? Guess what the underlying factor is? You're not going to get in God's kingdom. I don't talk.
So the question was, um, if you're being abused, is that an okay reason to divorce? I say yes. Now earlier I said something that could be misconstrued, so I like to clear that up. I said that I'm not talking about if your husband says something mean to you. And what I mean is in a frivolous manner. If you are being constantly physically abused, mentally abused, emotionally abused, I think those are grounds for divorce, right? I think um, that is introducing trauma into not just your lives, but if you have children, the children's lives, and that's teaching them that okay, this is what love is, and I think that's not what we want to build in society. To just go off a little bit, there are different types of abuse. There's like sexual abuse, and then there's what's the other one? Drug abuse, right? Drug and alcohol abuse. Some persons can't control themselves, and I think like when it comes to addicts, right? These abusers of these substances, some of them really can't control themselves, or they don't get the point of all right, let me stop until there is a consequence. So I have seen cases, or I've heard of cases where the spouse will stick to it and say, you know what, I'm here for you, I'm here for you. Even, well, some will bail them out, which I don't find is right, but some will try to do the right thing and stay and thing, but it doesn't hit the addict until the topic of okay, I'm leaving you comes up, and so also those are toxic things that no person should have to go through, that even children should not be learning from or learning things. So I think also in those cases it may be all right to divorce, or necessary that a divorce occur.
Okay, that's some interesting takes. I almost feel like if my opinion might be the controversial one, when in fact, to me, the opinions always share more controversial, at least from a biblical standpoint, right? Because for me, at the end of the day, at least from the Christian perspective, even though we called by the Lord to use proper judgment and to be wise and to be prudent and all of that, and to consider the evidence and to study, and put your best foot forward to show yourselves approved. At the same time, we still have to respect that the word is the word. The word is the final authority, and we had to be cautious when we start making the decision to make our own rules. You know what I mean? Because from the time we start deciding what we think is best, we start getting into the territory of subjective morality, where we decide what we think is appropriate to make decisions about what is moral and what is immoral and what should constitute what. And for that reason, for me, and this is just for me, if the Bible does specifically say something is okay, even though it does seem like it is a complete answer to the question, to me, we had to roll with what the Bible says. So for me, they asked Jesus, and Jesus could have easily said, I mean, there's what he said, right? I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife except on the ground of sexual immorality. That is in the English Standard Version. Except for, yeah, I mean, he was pretty specific. He could have said except for mistreatment. He could have said except for abuse. He could have said except for making you feel bad, except for hurting your feelings, except for beating you up. He could have easily add two more words to that sentence to cover more things. So to me, and this is Jesus, it's not to say they wake him up out of his sleep and ask him that question and he was groggy and he answered while he wasn't thinking straight. We had to assume that God, being responsible, would have made that statement with clarity, and he would have said what he wanted to say, no more, no less. So for us to say, well, Jesus didn't say that, but to me, if a man beaten a girl, she should leave him. Or to me, if a man talking to a woman, and I'm blaming fellas, right? Because we just get all the blame families. If a man talking to a woman anyhow, she should leave him. But this is my concern, right? My concern is where to draw the line. It'll be based on the better judgment of the individuals in the situation if we don't have a stand. So for you, Krista, it might be, well, if the man beating me, that is too much. I go on. For Sean, it might be, if the man cussing me, that is too much. I go on. For Jade, it might be, well, if the man find my food and tasting good, I go on because I can't take that. That is just my, everybody had a line that is drawn. We drawing a line in the sand because it don't have a standard. So to me, even though I given all the ridiculous examples just to make the point, right? Which is that if the Bible does say it, we're not allowed to do it. So it must have a reason. So there's my thing. If something terrible taking place, remember you have another option. It's not stay and take licks or get divorced. You could separate. Nobody say you have to stay. But the question is whether you could get divorced. So to me, man, this, like I said, it's just my opinion. But I don't cut off my head. I just go in biblically. To me, separate. If you've been abused, if you've been mentally, emotionally, anything that is not what the Bible says you could divorce for, leave. And if at any point while you're separated, your spouse decide, I can't take this, I'm gonna deal with a situation outside, then by all means, or if they decide to desert the marriage entirely, by all means, you now have grounds for divorce. That is my views on the matter. Any responses? Krista, can I get jumping at the bit?
I listen. I just saying. I disagree. I'm so sorry. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, but I wholeheartedly just disagree. I think, okay, there is, yes, there are rules in the Bible, but we also know our God, right? At least we should. And I don't think he's a wicked person, right? And to say that, I'm not saying that you saying this, okay? But when you were speaking, it just came to my mind. So is he saying that if I don't stay in this, like, either physically emotional, it's not, oh God, physically abusive relationship or whatever, let's put abuse, if I don't stay in this abusive relationship, what, I'm not going to have God's favor. I'm not going to go to heaven. And like I'm like what are you saying in that regard? Because I like, yes, there are things today that we do as Christians that don't always line up with what God wants. Okay, that doesn't mean that, we've lost His favor, we've lost His love, or we've lost, um, you know, our way to heaven. You understand? So I think there's certain things, yeah, certain things require discernment, certain things require wisdom, and I think something like this absolutely does, because we're talking about death. Let's put aside the other abuses. Let's put physical abuse first, right? That's death. That could lead to death. That could lead to, because I'm thinking about this, right? If plenty people, or if let's say half the population in society is filled with abusive relationships, right? What does How does that carried on, like, to the children that are made out of these situations? We are literally talking about keeping people in uh in a traumatic situation. And yes, you're saying, all right, separate, okay, but sometimes that's not an option. Sometimes the man does not want you to leave. Sometimes you leave, and people, whoever know the family members of the person, will say, hey, I see your wife X so and so, and then they come. Or if it's a woman, listen, I'm not going to blame men alone for abuse. I know some crazy women out here, and they get overlooked because they're smaller than their husbands. So I'm saying this: separation may not be a fix. You understand what I'm saying? Separation may work for some, but I don't think it's an all round fix. Like I said, just now, there are people who just intend or have this possessive nature that if you leave, I'm going to kill you. If you actually make it out of the house and leave, I'm going to find you and I'm going to either beat you some more, or kill you, or whatever. Right?
Let
So
me interject a little bit, just help you clarify your point. You hear me, right?
yes,
Yeah.
it was.
So just to clarify your point,
I'm.
um,
Oh, okay, go ahead.
how does divorce differ from separation where your point is concerned? In other words, if leaving is difficult, it could be difficult whether you're leaving to divorce or you're leaving to separate. Where's the difference?
A divorce is final. Separation is kind of like, okay, I'm waiting for you behind, like I'm waiting, you know. If it is that type of situation where the husband or the whoever, the spouse who's abusive, is possessive in that nature, you are less likely to get away. Whereas with a divorce, okay, there's a sense of finality. You're like, okay, this is done. Let me move forward and hopefully get something better, or get
Like in
enter
like in terms of
a
the
better
man,
relationship. Say that again.
in terms of the man, like the man not allowing you,
Hmm.
whether you want to separate or you want to divorce, the man will still have the same attitude. You're not going to allow it to happen. You don't think so?
I mean, true, but
Also, to divorce, you have to separate it. You can't divorce without separating.
yes, I heard that.
Well,
I heard.
unless it's adultery. If it's adultery, you can divorce without separate. But otherwise, you gotta live separately for a significant period of time without authorization from the spouse. You have to live separately for 5 years.
Question.
Hmm.
Even and like, okay, if you're able to prove abuse, you still have to be separated. I
Well,
mean,
there is something they call unreasonable behavior as a grounds for divorce,
okay.
and in most cases, yes, you also need to be separate because it can be difficult for you to prove unreasonable behavior with somebody, yeah, and you're still sleeping in the same bed with them. You know what I mean? So the court wouldn't often rule favorably in an instance where you want to divorce somebody who you're still living with, and then you want to at the same time prove that it's so unreasonable to live with them, and to continue the relationship with them, but yet you're still there. You know what I mean? So yes, you could divorce somebody without leaving, but you have to be able to prove unreasonable behavior.
What
So I
does that
think
mean? That's what I mean. If you're able to prove it, like let's say you get video evidence of, okay, this man is beating me,
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
should leave.
yeah. If you have evidence, that would help. But not being there would certainly strengthen your case because being there might have evidence to support that maybe it could be worked out. You know what I mean? Or else why you're not gone?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Aaron. I think it.
I couldn't remember hearing Jesus say it's okay to separate from your wife.
Sorry, ask that again.
I said I couldn't remember hearing that Jesus said it was okay to separate from your wife.
No, he didn't say that.
Okay.
But
So so then, if you're getting abused, if you're getting one, stay there and take it.
well, they didn't disallow separation, but they disallow divorce. So on
So
in matters where the
saying,
Bible is silent, you have to use the discretion.
hold up, hold up. By you saying they didn't disallow it, right? Means that possibly there are other cases for divorce as well, too, right?
No, because he specifically disallow all other cases. He say
But
except for one thing.
yeah, but you just say it's okay to separate. Why are you separating from your wife?
Well, like I say, if the Bible is silent on an issue, then you have to use your discretion. If they didn't say something okay, if the Bible does say something okay or not okay, then it's something that left up to you to decide if it's okay to do. But
Okay,
on
so
an issue with the
you
Bible not
heard
silent, you
right?
have to use what the Bible say.
So you heard the scriptures I use, right?
Yeah,
All right, what do you think about them scriptures?
I agree with them.
You agree with them?
I
So
agree with
you
them.
agree that if you're serving God, you should not be violent in any case. Because the type of verse in the Bible that say, be wrathful and do not sin, right?
Agreed.
Agree.
Agreed. Agreed. But is it that you're saying that when somebody not living in accordance to those scriptures, it's up to you to decide whether they're good enough to stay with or not?
No,
In other
you
words, I
listen,
could
no,
say,
you
if
listen
you
to
fall short of that, I could divorce you, is what you're saying?
no, you listen to what I use as my argument, right? I didn't say mental abuse, I say physical abuse, right? Because I know when it comes to mental abuse, it have a very, very thin and wobbly line. I said physical abuse because that is the definite factor. If you get in your ass beat, right? Then I believe this is just me talking here, right? And I believe my words are inspired from God, just like Paul. I believe that if you're getting your ass beat, you should be able to leave, to get up and leave. Because at any point in time, that situation can go from bad to worse. This is just my point of view. Now, you say that you only have two grounds for divorce. I understand that, right? But separation is what? The first step to divorce. Separation is also the first step to divorce. So why are you taking the first step to divorce? No. Sit down and love up your wife. Hug up she, love up she, lie down next to she. When the night comes. Next question, please.
Before we go into the next question, I'd just like to address our comments. Jade Mitchell says, listen, I'm talking as if she's not my friend. Jade says, when we approach marriage and divorce from a biblical perspective, we have to look at it holistically, not just the few verses that mention the words marriage and divorce in the Bible. And I agree.
Right. Well, I kind of give my 2 cents on it already, for the most part, which is, to me, separation is a good strategy to employ. But like you were not saying, why separate if separation is leading to divorce? Well, for me, if you're separated in an attempt to protect yourself. That is the purpose of the separation. And in that time, remember, you're still serving God. So in that time, while you're securing yourself and making sure you don't die from abuse, you could use that time to submit your marriage to Christ. You don't know what God could work out in your situation, or if He could make it more, if He could direct you entirely. Maybe He could work it out in a way that one of the grounds for divorce is met. The unbelieving spouse might leave, desert the marriage, or he might do something he wasn't supposed to do. We're talking about. But in the interim, you safe. You're not going to get killed. You're not going to get mentally abused anymore. So you protect yourself and use the opportunity to submit your situation to Christ and ask that He works it out. But I certainly understand the perspective.
Can
Um,
I just add one thing before you ask your next question?
sure.
I honestly believe in marriage restoration. Jade got me hooked on this. I don't know if it's a YouTube channel or like a program on TV called the 700 Club. And basically, it's a bunch of stories about marriages being restored and like from abuse, all kinds of different things, right? And so I hear what you're saying. I also don't see divorce as a bad thing because I also think that, as I said, sometimes people need that wake up call and they don't realize it because we're human. We don't realize it until we realize, oh wait, this thing is final. I'm about to lose somebody. I'm about to lose my partner, my friend. Let me see if I could straighten up. Sometimes it works in that cases. Sometimes the couples even divorce and then come back together like a couple months later or a year later, so on. So I think, you know what? Listen, once you serve in God, it will work out for you. Whether you're divorced, separate, it will work out. Ask your next question, please.
All right, cool. Interesting views. And your views perfectly understandable. Just so I know, I think perfectly understandable. So next question is, how do you all think divorce affects the individual that is going through the divorce, both individuals and the family as a whole? What's your views on, because a lot of people think, because popular culture make it seem so straightforward and seem so,
True.
easy to do because it's so commonplace now.
True.
I don't think a lot of people understand the significance of how complex it is, or how difficult it is, or how taxing it could be to go through a divorce. So, what's your views on how a divorce affects the persons involved and the family as a whole?
I think that divorce could be a very mentally taxing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Most time when you get married, you're being with this person for however long, you love this person, you all had plans or whatever, and then this thing comes now and out of the blue, we just can't anymore. That is something that would, at least for me, that will real play on my mind, and like it is a kind of stress because all of these plans, all of these everything, it just gone right now. That could affect you really badly, and then when your mind is affected, your body is now affected, so you just people is just turn, like it seems like a personality turn afterwards sometimes when you get divorced. And then if you have children in the mix now, it's like, okay, how are we raising these children as divorced people? If the divorce was a very bad one, those children are going to be in a very bad space, and that's just not going to work out. If it was a kind of a peaceful divorce, I guess the children might not be so bad, but things will affect them anyhow, and you mightn't know it's affecting them. They mightn't want to say it's affecting them, but then they might go to school and the teachers and their friends might realize something is wrong because it is affecting them. Or even if not, in the future, if they don't heal from what happened there, it is going to affect them. So divorce affects, I don't know which one it is right now. It does not work well for the human being. This is why two become one, so that the missing part of your one, when you divorce, your one just got separated. So yeah, that's like how I think about it.
All right. Let me just start by saying, um, I think that two people are to be extremely mature when they're going and get married. Right? Let me just start by saying that, right? We know that most cases that is that is not how it does go. And quite frankly, some churches just push young people to get married without teaching them what marriage really entails, right? That is why I believe that for certain steps, if you want to go, if you want to be attached to a certain organization, I believe that the organization should be sitting down and having regular talks with how you should carry about yourself, with how youth should carry about yourself, with how people should carry about yourself. But the Emerson question, from the time you get divorced, it affecting your children one time, right? Let's like Sean say. Sometimes, well, you might not even know it affect your son, it affect your daughter, it affect your children. And then just so you might realize that hey, they started act out in school or whatever the case may be. And then when you do a thorough trace back to everything, is because of the divorce. You understand me? I cannot say whether it affects a husband or a wife more. I think it all depends on the circumstances that happen, wherever that circumstances may be. I go be out of place there if I just throw something out there and say that hey, it affect husband more or hey, it affect wife more. Right? The only thing that we do know is that wives file for divorce more than husbands. That's the only thing that we do know according to statistics, right? But for the reason, it have many reasons and it have many affects and effects according to Sean. But that left up to the individual themselves. But all in all, it affects you, it affects your children and them, it affects the wife, wherever the case may be. That is all I could say.
I say it affects every single person involved. Okay, now obviously it will affect, the persons closest to the divorce more than it would like, extended family members. But I think it affects everyone, and it also affects society. But I'm not going to go into all of that. I think even if it's ended amicably, it will affect the child. It would affect them either as their children, or if it's not dealt with at that point, it could affect them when they're adults, right? It might come out in certain things like trust issues or teach. I read somewhere that this person learned that it's better to walk away than to fix issues, or the best way to fix the issues to walk away from a divorce. And her parents divorced amicably, right? Um, sorry, I'm watching the comments and I get weak. With children, I think I think I think it's imperative that parents watch their children and take note of their children in this time. And it's not just, oh, whilst the divorce is happening, like, okay, we filed for divorce and we're going through the, paperwork, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's also the lead up. So the fighting, the arguments that take place before. Children are stupid. Like, they are quite intelligent. They know what's going on. And I think just to be as honest as you can in that situation with them, just to make them feel like if they're involved, but any because let's think about it. Children's imaginations go wild. Okay, they 1 minute they're thinking, oh God, mommy and dad again a divorce, when it's just a regular fight. So I think in any of these situations, just talking to the children, making sure they know what's going on, being as honest as you can. You don't have to, give away all the information, but be a bit, be honest with them. Don't lie to them. Um, in terms of each other, the husband and the wife, I think I said this earlier, or did I say this earlier? I don't know. Be respectful, okay? Try your very best not to make this thing ugly, because it's the ending of something. You understand what I'm saying? It's the ending of a unit. It's the ending of something that was not meant to be ended. And there are memories. There are so many things that, you think about in this time. And for both men and women. So women, watch your words, watch how, you conduct yourself. Men, do the same thing, because it affects everybody. Everybody it affects. And the best way, I think, is honesty. Just to deal with it, be honest, be respectful. That's what I think. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, you more than answer the question, Krista. Um, for me, I think yeah, I could echo a lot of the sentiments or the share, especially when the kids are concerned. A divorce is a traumatizing experience for most children. And to be honest, the effects of that much easier to observe when the children become adults and they start facing their own relationship um, challenges and their own family situations is when you really start seeing the effects of what a divorce situation could do for children, and particularly young children and adolescent children. So I think we spend enough time on that. I agree with the views all you have there, where each other is concerned. There's this perspective that well, if it ain't working out, you end it and you move on with your life. It's really not that simple because even in a difficult marital situation, the dissolution of a marriage has caused some serious effects. And it's not just about the actual divorce proceedings, it's the ending of the marital relationship itself. So from the time you decide to walk away from a marriage, you'll start dealing with the issues related to that, because a serious relationship like that just create intense bonds between people. Um, like I hear once in a Miles Monroe sermon, he was saying each time two people in a conversation have a significant interaction, consider that like a cable that runs from one person to the next person. And each time you continue to talk to each other and ask each other questions and peer deeper into each other's lives, you run more cables between you and that person until it has so many between you and that individual. Excuse, including the sexual one where a marital couple actually becomes one flesh. Then that when you break that, it's not a matter you're just cutting a cable in the middle. It's impossible. You can't separate two people like that joined to that extent. So yeah, what actually happens is you break both individuals. It is you can't separate them without causing damage. So both parties end up suffering damage as a result, and it's unavoidable. So it's a very difficult thing to go through, even in a bad situation where you can't wait to leave. There's been many stories of people who were in terrible marital situations and they were enthusiastic to leave. And after they separate from the spouse, they experience some traumatic um, depression, and it was difficult for a lot of them to understand because there was, why would you feel that way from somebody you can't wait to get away from? But that's because of the significance of the connection that you form with somebody you marry, and people just underestimate how difficult it is to remove that one. And I think that's something people should really deeply consider as why not to take marriage lightly, why not to enter into one lightly, and why not to end one easily either, because it's very traumatic to go through and it's very difficult to recover from. Anybody have anything else to say before we move on to the next question?
No, I think we're good. You have another question?
Yeah, we have one other question, at least from me, and that is, what are we gonna say to people who've already been down this road? They've already been divorced, and they want to know what's next for them. What should I do now? What could I do now? What am I entitled to do? Quote unquote legally, we're talking from a biblical perspective as a Christian, or just in everyday life, how to move forward from here, both as a Christian, what you're enabled to do, what you're allowed to do, and both just in everyday life. What's the best way to approach moving on from a divorce?
Well, I never been married, so I never been divorced. I really don't know what to tell you. But if I have to think logically about this, I would say if you're done divorce already, you're done divorce already. Yes, it hurting and you know, but don't sit and get yourself like into a depression and all of those things. Don't go out and be wild and find more man and more woman to just satisfy yourself because you're hurting. All those things don't contribute to anything. And yes, like Susan Nicole, let's say we say to them, don't ever find yourself in such a situation again. You understand? So God is gracious. He's forgiven you for that. He knows. We will know the situation because you're done divorce. Just don't go out and do wild things. Take your time, talk to God, find out what He wants from you now. Where should I go? All of these nice things that you should do. And that's my answer.
Yo, sorry about that. Um, well, I'm married, obviously. I mean, we say that however, so much of our shows now, I ain't paying attention or some. Right? I ain't divorced, so I was never divorced, so I can't really give you a definite answer. But I can give you what I think about the matter. And as talking from the man's point of view, I think that as a man, depending on what age you get married at, you don't get married in the next 5 years. Stay away from marriage in like 5 years or something, right? Use that 5 years and work on yourself, right? Build a better bond with yourself. Um, what's the thing I'm looking for? Get in physical condition, read plenty, probably start a business. Do things that will benefit you, and also keep your mind off the negatives in the situation that you leave, right? And two, what you could possibly do too is probably put some extra thought into who you might want to spend your future with if you decide to ever get married again, or if you just want to remain single, like Paul say, and serve God, right? But if you decide, this is just my opinion again, people. If you decide to get married again, you have a definite answer on what to look forward to, or what you're looking in a female, so that you could avoid going down this road again, possibly because we really don't know who we choosing at the end of the day, right? You could avoid going down that road, or well, you could avoid it altogether. That is all I can say.
Listen, these comments are me weak right now. My advice is this. I mean, again, I never been married, so I've never been divorced. But if I were to think about it logically and a little bit emotionally, Emerson and I talked about, all right, this is a unit that is ending. This is something that was not meant to end. It's ending. And I think allowing yourself time to grieve is important. I agree with both Shan and Aaron, but I think before you get to that, I think, all right, recognize this is the end. Go through whatever you have to go through, feel what you have to feel, and then move on. Don't ignore those feelings. Um, I think sometimes we tend to not want to be sad or not want to be like in a bad state, but the Bible says there's a time, there's a season for everything. There's a time for war, there's a time for love, there's a time for, I think, sadness, all those types of things. And I think when you pass the season, you don't you're doing yourself a disservice basically when you bypass this season. All right, so feel your feelings, acknowledge them, heal from them, allow yourself to heal from whatever took place, and then be proactive and go about and try not to dwell on it. If when this season of joy comes, enjoy that season of joy. You understand? So that's kind of like my advice of what makes sense to do. Other than that, I have nothing. But yes, Emerson.
Okay. For people who, well, at least some of you who not married, I think I'll give some pretty good advice. So, good job, ladies. Aaron, as you know, one of the elder statespersons on the panel of divorce. I mean, sorry, my mistake of marriage. Don't get me die, my mistake. Um, Good job as well. So there's my 2 cents. Where moving on is concerned, I think the first thing you need to do is that you have to own your part to play in whatever transpire in your marital situation. You got to be able to make peace with what went on and what take your marital situation to the place it went to. And that includes if you feel like the offended party. Because a lot of the times, you feel like somebody has to be the victim and the other person has to be the abuser in the situation. And very often, both parties have a part of the blame. You know, I've heard people say before in cases of infidelity that a partner might be saying they're willing to accept 49% of the blame for all the marital problems and put the next 51% on the other part. They accept zero responsibility for the act of infidelity. So, in in an instance of a marriage ending, I think it's very important to accept, to come to terms with, and to make peace with the circumstances surrounding what ended the marriage and what your role in the situation was. Because if you leave that situation without learning anything about yourself, you're very likely to end up in a similar situation with your next partner, assuming you get married again. Because assuming that all your problems are solely based on the fact that you pick bad and you end up in a situation with a poor choice. That is an unreasonable way. That is not a sensible way to approach the situation. So to me, that's the first. Make peace with the situation and own your part to play. And then make sure that you understand that time is your friend, like you're not saying. No need to rush into anything. Time is your friend. Even though it feel like we're enemy, time usually is something that's help us that is help bring perspective. Like they say, hindsight is 2020. So you have the opportunity now to look back at your life and to be able to determine what was what. And give yourself time to heal, the time to process, the time to work on yourself. I agree with all Aaron's points where that is concerned. And also consider the fact that, like Shan was saying, God is a gracious God. So even though, we would not advise, or I would not advise that you get divorced for any reason outside of the ones that the Bible permits, and that you find some other way to resolve it. Right? But that's just me. To me, even if someone does that, like, you get divorced because you find the man too lazy, or you find he don't look good with a bald head, whatever it is, right? Even if you're divorced for a ridiculous reason that unjustifiable for most people, God wouldn't condemn you to hell for it. God is a gracious God, He's a forgiving God, He's a merciful God. And you don't have to live in shame or in guilt and feel like if you don't have a future and that you can't move on with your life because you make decisions that weren't in alignment with what the Bible has to say. Because the same thing can be applied to everything else. If you steal once or you lie once or you do anything wrong once, you're also not condemned to hell as a result of it. So people who are already divorced and they're looking back at the decision and feeling shame, a sense of shame that they divorced and they probably should have done more, worked harder to resolve their marriage or reconcile. And obviously now it's too late now. You don't have to feel like if you don't have a future or you don't have or that God will never forgive you, you're going to hell, or you can't be happy in the future. So that's just my 2 cents for those in that situation. How to approach it when you're leaving that situation. If you already made the decision and you didn't make it for what you might feel is good enough reasons, that you still have a bright future ahead of you. You can repent for your sins, but God is a forgiving and a merciful.
Okay, so I think it's time for me to ask my questions. All right. So my first question, and we talked a little bit about this before, but I want to know if you guys have any other reasons. So my first question is, why do people get divorced? And do you think that a lack of preparedness leads to the issues that cause divorce?
Yes. So, lack of preparedness. Yes, I think that is a big one, especially for young people. I mean, did you love yourself before you got married? Did you have peace with yourself before you get married? Were you happy with yourself before you get married? Did you know yourself before you get married? Were you one with yourself before you get married? Do you even know why you want to get married? And what is that reason even a sensible reason for wanting to get married? all of these questions that need to be asked, along with other questions that need to be asked, you're not prepared. You just run into something because, oh, he loved me so much and he put a ring on my finger. Okay, but why do you want to get married to this person? Are you ready? Are you mature enough to go into a marriage? This is not just we playing house. This is not Barbie and Ken. This is your life with someone. You have to be mature enough to want to learn that someone, be mature enough to unlearn some of your ways, even. You understand? You can't just run into a marriage just like that. So also, like, who is helping you along this way? Who you're listening to before you decide to get married? Who? All of these things would contribute to you not being prepared. All of these things would contribute to a divorce in the future because you do not know what you are getting yourself into. And you just run into it and then you realize you can't deal with it. And that's it. Yeah, you just, after that, you just jump in here and there looking for something and you wouldn't find it. So, yes, I think lack of preparedness also.
Um, I want to ask a question before I go on my little tangent here, right? Who's supposed to be preparing people to get married? Well, like, who's supposed to be talking to them really?
Are you touching my answers, boy? I was gonna bring my talking points on this to them. But just to answer your question, I would say their family, their parents, and maybe even their grandparents, society. We're supposed to nurture the younger ones on the way in which they should go, but we don't. We don't have that in place.
Good answer for beauty pageant 2016. Yeah.
2022, darling.
I know what I said.
Keep it current.
I know what I said. Yeah. Anyway, so well, I go and throw real stones here, and I don't care who headed boss, right? But I find when it comes to certain things, I've observed plenty church organizations push people to get married, and then when they start to go through little rough patches in their marriage, you're looking at the pastor and the pastor looking wrong. So, way by way, that's ceiling real nice there, boy. So the same ones, this is just me talking here. Again, this is just me talking here. The same ones who will push you to get married wouldn't counsel you properly. And then when you're going through certain things, they expect you to have the answers for it. Like, like you just jump out just so when they know they have been watching you and say, well, you and sister Janae over there look good together, and you and sister Janae, well, just go out and you understand me? Sometimes they push you to do all kind of thing and then they just leave you by the wayside. But anyway, let me stop before YouTube take me down. Um, Lack of preparedness. You can't really you could only prepare so much when it comes to marriage, to be quite honest with you, because like I tell you before, like I said before, sometimes people change. Sometimes the person who you get with now is not the same person 10 years down the road, It's not the same person 5 years down the road. It's not the same person 1 year down the road, right? And we seen plenty of marriages ending within the 1 year period these days, right? So people let's jump in this thing and they just have a different ulterior motive, and then now it started to show up when you can't just separate from this person like he is a boyfriend and girlfriend kind of thing now. If you understand what I'm saying, oh God, my battery going on there, people. But my thing is, you could only prepare so much when it comes to marriage is only if you and this other person conscious enough to keep working on this thing is where it will work out in the end. Because problems sure to arise, and it's however you deal with the problems is where the end result will take place. That's just my little 2 cents.
Right. So there's an interesting question. Thanks for posing that question. I think it's a really interesting question. Um, Preparedness. Well, definitely the responsibility for preparing people for marriage is on the shoulders of the people who uh, pushing the institution. The institution of marriage is something, for the most part, society is still promote, but mostly now the churches you want promoted it. So I think education as to what a marriage is supposed to be like, what marital, what couples supposed to be like, what a husband should be like, a wife should be like, that responsibility rests on the shoulders of the church and by extension on the shoulders of the individuals, the elders in the individual's lives, primarily the parents and then the other individuals, the other elders in the family or the extended family or the community. Personally, I think your personal level of responsibility for uh, preparing yourself, obviously, you need to establish, and most of us have enough maturity to determine whether we could function in society and be ready for what most people perceive as the typical things an adult has to do. So you ought to prepare yourself to be able to handle life as an adult and do the things that they expect marriage to entail, which is either to provide or to take care of your home or to nurture kids, that sort of thing. So if you know you're not able to fulfill the basic responsibilities of your marriage, that is the extent of your preparedness. But mental and emotional preparedness, I think the broader community more responsible for you where that is concerned than you being responsible for yourself. Now, the true level of preparedness to make a marriage successful in my mind is to have in your head that the only way a marriage could genuinely work is if the marriage is between you, your future spouse, and God. Anytime the success of the marriage is based on the behavior of the individuals in the marriage, I sorry to say, but it's far from likely to work out in the long run. Because from the time somebody start moving off, your reason for wanting to continue to be in the marriage will disappear. But if your reason to be in the marriage is because of the commitments you make to God, in other words, you say, God, you expect me to stay in this marriage, and in this marriage I'm supposed to act a particular way, then your behavior wouldn't be based on the behavior of your spouse. So when your spouse start acting off, that do then influence your behavior. You do then start to say, well, there's not the man I marry or the woman I marry. So therefore I go respond in a particular way. Your behavior will be determined by what God say you should be. God say a husband should be like this, and that is how you will be. God say a wife should be like this, and that is how you will be. And even when your spouse don't keep up their end of the agreement, you will continue to live life in a particular way. So what happens is when one person don't do what they're supposed to do, that don't end the marriage. The other person could be strong for both parties for a period of time. And that creates the likelihood of a marriage working successfully when each person committed to act in a certain way because that is what's expected of them by God and not just because they love their spouse. Because love is a fickle thing these days, especially when you're not happy, is feel like you don't love the person, and then it's also feel like you have no reason to stay. You know what I mean? So that is my 2 cents on what preparedness is supposed to be about.
Okay. So to answer my first question, I found somewhere the top 5 reasons for divorce, right? Number one, it says infidelity. Number two, lack of intimacy. Yes, lack of intimacy, physical and otherwise. Three is communication. Four, money, and five, addiction. Right now, this is kind of how I see it. I see everything like from the time you're born, you are being trained, right, to conduct your life as a productive member of society, as a productive adult, right? And even things that we may not think of, like, okay, teaching your children discipline, teaching your children um follow through, like, okay, I tried piano this month, but in the first class I didn't like it. So teaching them, all right, even though you don't like it, follow through even still, what's that called? It's dedication, it's discipline. Teaching them those things could help them as they grow older, right? And so when I talk about preparedness, I don't just talk about, all right, well, this is what a marriage is supposed to be. Um, this is how it's supposed to look. I'm talking about also in terms of the personality, because we talked about that. The persons or the people that are supposed to be getting married are supposed to be mature individuals who are intentional in making this thing work, right? And that doesn't just pop out of nowhere like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna be intentional today. Like, it's a habit that is formed. And so when I say preparedness, I think that parents, I think the society, the church, whoever is meant to raise this community is responsible for preparing all of us for this thing. They may not tell us, okay, this is what marriage is supposed to be like, or this is what you have to do. They may only be able to give us guidelines, but instilling certain principles within us, right? Right now, we have social media where things are so easily accessible, where prawn, whatever, is so easily accessible, right? Teaching young men and young women too. All right, that is what it is. Maintain yourself. Stay away from that. That's not healthy for you. Teaching them, what's the other thing? We say infidelity, lack of intimacy, even having conversations like, I don't know if wives have this thing where they get together and talk about their marriage, but sometimes I feel like we do it to complain instead of saying, all right, this is how we could work on our intimacy. And obviously in the marriage you'll have those conversations as well, I think. Communication, things like money. How is it that people, and sorry, let me tell you why I bring up money, right? When it comes to money, they don't even talk about, okay, we poor, that's why we're getting divorced. They talk about communication issues, dealing with money. So one person is overspending, one person is doing this, um, one is holding finances over somebody else. That's what they talk about when they say they divorce because of finances. So I'm saying lack of preparedness is a serious thing, because I think everything you do when you go to school, right? You learn. You study. If you want to be a biologist, you study to be a biologist. If you want to be whatever other scientist, a mathematician, you study for these things. And I think the same way goes for relationships. I think mothers need to sit down and talk to their daughters on how to be with a man, how to show a man respect. Fathers need to sit down with their sons and say, all right, this is how you love your wife. Or even if they don't sit, well, I would prefer if they sit down, but even if they don't sit down, show, lead by example, these types of things. Mothers, pick the right husbands. Fathers, pick the right wives, so that we push forward a better society. I'm not saying it could be perfect, but a better society, a more productive society, where we're not all coming from broken homes. These statistics, I can't remember it by now, but the amount of broken homes that we all come from, or that are in society right now, is ridiculous. And I think these things that I brought up have to deal with that. That's kind of my 2 cents on that. Does anyone have anything to say? A response? Okay, cool. My other question is this: do you guys think it's better for the children if parents hold off divorce until like the children age up, like turn 18 or something? Do you guys think that that's better or no?
It really make a difference, to me. It really will make a difference. Because if the children small and they say, you know what, let me wait until they get older. Those children living with you, they are going to know that two of you all don't agree on things. They are going to feel that you all have no love for each other. Even if they can't explain what they are seeing, those children will know. And yes, divorce will mess with them, but I think y'all staying and making the environment what it is actually probably worse for the children when you do that. And if you wait until they're adults, They'll be like, oh, well, we already knew that this was going to happen and we've been dealing with it since whenever, unless you're real good and the children really can't pick up nothing. Just if you know you're going to do it, don't have the children inside there like this with you all. Just don't do it. If you know you're gonna divorce, just get it over with and then help the children through the trauma or whatever that needs to happen. Just don't do that. That would annoy me because I would know. So that would make it worse for me.
Yeah. Um, children does feel the energy, right? Children does feel the energy. I agree with what Sean's saying. Sometimes they don't know how to put a finger on it. They don't know how to explain it. But trust me, they always know when something going on. Sometimes they just always know when you and mommy don't have a bacchanal or you and daddy don't have a bacchanal. They just don't know already, right? Because they intuitive. They just feel that. They just watch your pattern and watch your behavior. They just know when things not going good from when things going good, right? And I personally, I believe if you're staying together for the children and them, be big man and big woman and work your stuff out. Don't stay together for the children and them because that just causing starting a whole next level of thing that's going on because that could lead to daddy and mommy walking around eggshells, right? The pool man coming extra days or the UPS woman coming extra days. You understand? The neighbor coming extra days. You understand me? Mommy and daddy friend that is little all them kind of thing. So if you know you're not going to be big people and deal with the situation and seek to find some kind of common ground where you could get back on good terms, most people might not agree with me, but I think you should just go about your business, right? The children them already know what's going on already. And even if they know now, when they get bigger and they have sense, they go don't know what's going on then already, right? And that gonna make it even when because I see this happen too. Sometimes the children set up by sides. Daddy, me know why mom moving so you know. Mommy know why daddy moving so you know. You understand me? I mean, it could happen regardless if you divorce, yes or no, right? But when you're talking your marital problems with your children, nothing good ain't going to come out of that. So, best you just get it over with and done, right? But if you're getting it over with, still be big people and say, hey, here's the scene, right? I still want you being in these children and them life. I still want you have an impact on these children and them. You come and see your children and them whenever you feel like, wherever the case may be, to make it work and still make the children come out a better for society now. Though don't jump up and all hell break loose when all they get together. That's just my view on the matter. But go ahead, go ahead.
Well, the only thing I want to add to that is that I fully agree with what Iran and Shan had to say there, especially where the children pick up on what happening. People just underestimate the children's ability to determine what going on. I've experienced firsthand, even at toddler age, that children sensitive to disagreements between parents. You see the children behavior change. Sometimes they just come and get in between the parents or they do things that different than the normal baseline behavior. Even when you think that nah, they could never know we vex. We didn't even start to correlate. And you notice the behavior of 2-year old, 1.5-year old children change. I tell you, I see it firsthand. So don't underestimate the extent to which the behavior of parents will affect children at any age. But other than that, I agree with everything else. All I have to say is if I talk anymore, I'll just be talking for spite.
Well, I'm the same with Emerson. If I say anything else, I'll just be talking around. I agree. I, I heard. Okay, I heard this brought up in relation to like men saying that they're thankful that their wife divorced divorced them after the child grew, turned 18 now. And I got to thinking, I was like, but was it good for the child though? Like, what did that child had to witness? You understand what I'm saying? And so I agree with you guys. I think children are very intuitive. I think that they would pick up on the bad vibes. And I specifically agree with Aaron when he said, if you guys are going to work it out, don't, don't just do it for the kids, do it for yourself. And I think um, if you're at the point of, okay, yeah, we could work it out, I don't think it might be that bad. Like, if you think about it, most people, if they're in a terrible situation, they want to get out, get out, get out. And if you have the mindset of, you know what, maybe we could work this thing out, it may not be so bad, right? And so I agree. I don't think I don't think you should stay married just for the kids. My third question is this, right? So the most recent statistic that I saw stated that the divorce rate in America, right, is just shy of 50%. Do you guys think that people in today's society value marriage enough to not get divorced? So I know we were talking about in one of our earlier episodes we were talking about, is marriage meant to make you happy or holy? I think is that episode. And I was reading the book where it was based on, and the sense of duty very much called to me, because typically we hear, all right, people get married for love, for love, for love, but I hear less about, okay, having the sense of duty. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think people in today's society value marriage enough to not get divorced?
I think that the value for marriage is very, very, very small right now. If you could tell me that a man could marry a man, a woman could marry a woman, and people could marry animals and inanimate objects, then where is the value for marriage in the first place? That the value factor is gone out the door with that. For me, that no value again. You understand? So if it have no value for marriage again, because you all think that this is okay to do, and that is our marriage because we love each other, and I don't know how an inanimate thing could love you, but you understand? The love there, and I am a human and I want to be respected, and this is what I want to do. Then if there's no value for the marriage, then divorce could come as easy as whatever, because I mean it have no value anymore. So then what is a divorce? My opinion.
All right. I think with the fall of when people decided that, hey, we can live life how we want and we don't really need to listen to the church to govern us on how we should live and whatever the case may be. I think that is when marriage begin to plummet, right? Because really and honestly, this is just why I see it. The religious organizations is really the ones that could really hold used to really hold marriage in a certain esteem, right? And they, in my opinion, again, they used to show you the positives of being married, right? You get a particular type of household, your children come out to do a particular thing in society, whatever the case may be. I don't want to bore you with the extra details. With the rise of social media now and with everything that get easier, like what Krista said, I think it's Krista. I don't want to take away nobody points from there. I think it's Krista said earlier on. Social media make everything get easier. To get a man easier, to get a woman easier, to get attention from strangers easier. All you have to do is sometimes your face on you just take a picture and people just start to laugh at your face. And then boom, here's a meme. You understand? So it's easy to get attention, right? For the good and the bad reasons. And I think that, hold on, yeah, I think that with the cause of that, people don't really value it just the same because they're just free to view it like another type of relationship. Okay, so he's boyfriend and girlfriend, you get married, he's just extra boyfriend and girlfriend. You understand me? He's just extra boyfriend and girlfriend where it's like, okay, so if you making more money than me, you getting money for the rest of your life. Right? You understand me? You're paying taxes for the rest of your life. That is just it for me.
Well, for me, it no. That is basically it. No, society don't value marriage enough not to get divorced. Just no. And to be honest, my answer to the previous, not the previous, well, 2 questions ago, that a marriage need to be between 3 people. Well, between 3 individuals. Your husband, your wife, whatever. You and your spouse, and God. And the reason for that is when people get married now, like they get married, like one or let's say for love, or to put it a different way, they marry with the expectation of being happy. Because a lot of people believe the purpose of life is happiness. You're put on this earth to pursue happiness. Think of a movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, right? A popular Will Smith movie. People believe that is what life is about, to be happy. And people approach marriage with the same attitude. That you get married because the purpose of marriage is to fill you with joy. So when you get married, as long as your marriage is not fulfilling that, you're not happiness that it's supposed to provide, you want out, you know? And that is not the way marriage is supposed to work. So whenever you're married, and that is how society marries, and your expectation is that you're supposed to be treated a certain way, your marriage is supposed to go a certain way, and it's not working out and you're not happy, you'll want to leave, where your behavior is dependent on the behavior of your partner. Once they're not fulfilling their end of the bargain, you could. And that is why we have so many divorces, because a marriage have no backbone when the only thing that keeping the marriage going is the other person fulfilling their obligations all the time. You know what I mean? So it had to have something other than the behavior of your spouse motivating you to act a particular way. So when you being the way you be is because that is the way God wants you to be. That is what has created the environment for a lasting situation. But society doesn't have that. Society marrying because they want to be happy and they think they're gonna get the fairy tale, the Cinderella story, all the different Disney movies roll up into one, and once that not happen in the marriage, you're gone.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think people value it. I don't think people see um the value in it anymore, because a lot of the reasons why persons got married in the past, they've been monetized or easily, become easily accessed. So things like sex, before you had to wait to get married to have sex. That's no longer or like a thing. And these are just minuscule things, right? But um even talking, so in some societies, even you couldn't even be out and about with a young lady without a chaperone. um and now, you have Instagram, we have text messenger, you could hit somebody down in the DMs. There's no, I think society has failed to maintain the value of marriage. And then because of how they set up, how divorce is set up in some cases, maybe not in Trinidad, but in some cases, it discourages people from wanting to get married, or seeing something good in marriage, right? So yeah, I completely agree with you guys. I don't think I have much to add. You guys hit on the points. So my last question, and it's the question hopefully we'll end the show on, if nobody has anything to add, is this. Okay? In your personal opinion, I mean, I know we've already established this, but I'm still asking. Do you think a society of broken families can be fruitful? If not, what are some things you see that can be done to help curb the divorce rate, or curb, um, broken families? What do you guys think?
Well, I being honest with all you, it had nothing you could do to curb the divorce rate. that is for people in general to get that idea from, right? People have to see the benefit of being in marriage again, and not only in marriage, but the benefits of having children that in a wonderful marriage, to see the basically the effects on society, right? Because it also have a statistic that said that children that grow up with both parents, right, tend to do exceedingly better than children who grow up with single parents, right? That is society had to come to the had to come to that simultaneous agreement where they see that, hey, this institution is better for future generations to basically improve what going on in the world right now, right? I honestly don't think that it have anybody who singularly could, unless it's Jesus himself, could come down and say, well, as you seen, right? I only do this. I don't think it have any man, any imperfect man who could talk on it and just get everybody to get aligned with it one time. I think that is basically on the individuals to see if it beneficial to them, yes or no. It may sound bad, but that is just what it is.
All right, so I like this question. It's an interesting question. Um, Broken families, no, they're not fruitful, and this is the reason. There's a reason I see it as not being fruitful. The main responsibility for humanity is continuance. That is the number one objective. Number one objective of humanity is to continue humanity. Anything else humans do is come secondary to that. Because if we're not continuing to be here, then no point advancing technology, learning anything, recording history, anything else we do really is a waste of time if we don't continue to keep the human race going. And integral to continuance of the human race is the family dynamic. That is where you create more humans, right? And that is where you teach humans how to be humans. Um, and it is in that environment where men learn how to be men, women learn how to be women, and men and women learn what they should expect from another man and another woman. That is what has created, you know, human dynamics, the social dynamics that we know and we love, or well, or that we don't love so much. But that is what has created humanity as we know it. And the home, the family dynamic is the main, is the strongest area where that development does take place, where society is being formed the most. So you'll find when you break the family unit, you eliminate the opportunity for the next generation to learn what men and women supposed to interact, how men and women supposed to interact, how a man supposed to behave, how a woman supposed to behave. A lot of things you just don't learn at all, and then they have to figure it out on the way, by all the other resources, social media, observing their peers, television, movies, listening to all kind of different, mostly unscrupulous resources. Um, so that's precisely why a broken family do help it, not fruitful in that way. The question about whether something could be done is another issue because now we have other things to deal with. We have identity politics and all the other things that basically eliminated the need for the family dynamic to teach men how to be men and women how to be women and families to be families, because the new rule is that there aren't any rules. You know what I mean? Everything good, everything goes and everything good. Once it's good for you, it's good. And everybody had to respect everybody's right to approach life from any angle they see fit. And if you're not tolerant, basically tolerance is the ultimate virtue right now. If you're not tolerant, you're evil, basically. So the best thing that can be done to curb the lack of importance placed on family unit influencing society positively is to start emphasizing the importance of eliminating identity politics. You know what I mean? And re-establishing the fact that gender roles do exist. A man is still a man, and a woman is still a woman, and still have significance attached to what we were meant to be and what we were meant to be like. And in an instance like that, the family unit still have a purpose.
Yeah, so to me, um, broken families can't be fruitful because out of broken families will come broken people. And unless these broken people are fixed or want to be fixed, then there is no way that society could be fruitful. And to me, if the persons who are pushing for marriage the most are not preparing or trying their best to prepare the people who are going to be married to understand as best as possible what they are getting into, then divorce is definitely imminent, and the rate would not change unless somebody could help these people who come from broken places to fix themselves. And then when you want them in a marriage, teach them as best as you could. Teach them, and not from just your experience or what you learn, but study, read, find out things. Even if you had to do it for yourself, study, read, find out things. Ask the right people the questions. You wouldn't always know who's the right people, but the more you talk to someone, the more you could probably distinguish what is good from what is bad and what I should keep. Eat the meat and throw away the bones. You understand? So to me, it can't be curbed unless there is that little thing of the preparedness and the fixing before the marriage even happens. Yeah.
So this is kind of how I think about it, right? I think, or history has shown, that the two-parent household is the best for the child. And I think that I also think that the Emerson brought up generals. I also think that the taking out or the extraction of the woman from the household has a part to play. I'm not going to say it's the entire reason why we are in the state we're in, but I think it has a part to play. And I think if parents aren't okay, parents have to work. You're working a 9 to 5 and you're coming home, you're tired. Sometimes you don't necessarily have time for your kids. You understand what I'm saying? And I think that for our society, if if that gap, if that hole is not being filled, um, we will continue to degrade. So what benefits came from that when women were in the household and thing. First of all, I believe husbands may be happier because they were getting food, they were getting sex. So they're coming home from work and they're able to relax, they're able to have, a good decompression. And so they're able to be better fathers. Mothers, they were able to teach their children the right way. So they're in the household, they can guide their children, they can teach them whatever, whether it's finances. Our school systems today, in today's day and age, don't even teach people how to live life. They don't teach you about credit cards. They don't teach you about paying taxes. They don't really teach you about life. You understand what I'm saying? Life skills or things. They teach you to pass a test. They yes, they educate you so you can pass a test and so you can get a government job or whatever is their thing. They don't teach people how to be kind to one another, not really. And so what I think can be done is if governments, seeing as women are now working, right? the goal for me is that women will, um, have more vested interest in the home. However, if that's not the case, a way to maybe fill in that gap is to maybe create programs, right? So, programs for marriages or programs where um, men and women could meet. I know some people on YouTube are doing this thing where they are hosting, um, they're creating a space for people to come together, a respectful space, and I think some of them are even coaching people how to connect with other people, how to respect one another. I've seen a few instances. It's not really prevalent, but I've seen cases where that is something like I go and shout out a friend, Project Wife Me Up, programs such as that. The threefold ministry, marriage ministry. I hope I'm not misquoting things like this, and pushing this forward so that you're filling in the gaps for people, right? Living life is not just getting a good job and maintaining that good job. It's also the connections that we make. And if we don't know how to make connections, I mean, we won't make them, or we'll have awkward interactions. And so I think if we are not um, if we are not if women, because when I say we, I mean women, if we don't want to go back into the household, I think that other things need to put in place. I think that, oh God, I lost my thought. But basically, programs either by the government need to be put in place, or parents need to play a larger role in their children's lives. If you're not going to do that, please don't have kids. I'm sorry. Please, let's stop this broken family, this broken society chain. If you're doing something, do it right for me, please. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Anybody have anything else to say? All right, well, the last thing I'm seeing here, I'm seeing a comment in the live chat. It says, do you think that God is in the marriage? This is our last question for the night, because all we tired.
I think that God should be in your marriage. I mean, if you don't have God in your marriage, are you even married? That is my question. Like without God, you can't do it. You just the threefold cord cannot be broken. You, your husband, and God. Without it, that marriage, to me, it will never be a proper marriage. It will never be what God intended it to be. And yeah, to me, something will always be missing. Something will always be missing if you don't have God in your marriage. That's just me.
And also down here and study some before I ask this question, right? Krista, where say the statistics of divorce is 50% or a little over that?
No, not over. In the States, it is just under, like maybe 49%, maybe.
Okay, all right. So that basically, so that 1 in 2. You have a 1 in 2 chance of getting divorced, right?
Yeah.
Why?
Essentially.
Why it have so much other insurances, right? Why don't have divorce insurance?
Explain.
What do you mean? Why need to explain it? Do have a divorce insurance? You have life insurance, you have car insurance, you have house insurance. How come you don't have divorce insurance?
If you get divorced, the company pay.
Somebody paying.
Not
So
called a
remember, if they write off your marriage, what they doing? They give you an ex-wife for?
Well, you make the marriage. But anyway, let me answer this question before people start to stone me on YouTube. Yeah? I for one think that God should be in your marriage, right? I really honestly think that God should be in your marriage. I think that as a man and a woman who come in together, right? And I am saying a man and a woman, because we know what some other people there say marriage is. As a man and a woman coming together, I think they should have God heavily in the center of the marriage, whereas you're doing certain things together, you're praying together, you're having your own little personal Bible study. Don't wait till the pastor want to call your wife in the lonely room in the back to teach your wife about God, to say something, Oh, you understand what I'm saying, right? Yeah. I'm not going down that road yet tonight, right? Yeah, you should have God in your marriage, but I will say this: when you're reaching the divorce court, there's no God in there. It's just you and your wife and the judge. The judge is God.
Well, to answer the question, no. For the most part, no. God not in marriage. But like Aaron and Shan say, he should be. And if he not, then like I said probably twice already, it not likely to work out well because it's a proper marriage is a three-man job, you know? It's God, is you is your spouse. But no, for the most part, I don't think God is in marriage. Not in today's society.
And I also agree. I don't think that God, at least our God, is in many marriages in today's society. I agree with everyone when they say I don't think listen, I agree that God gives graces to everyone and marriage is one of those things. But I don't think and Sean said it earlier, I think something may be missing. Something would be missing in that marriage that doesn't have God in it. I don't see how persons could be married and not have God. I think, and Emerson also touched on this too earlier. Tiff and everybody points. He said that good. There has to be another reason or something like that. You have to have God in the marriage. It can't just be okay because my spouse act out today. I want a divorce. You understand? There has to be something. God is that tie, that knot or that tie, that cord. Sorry, that kind of brings you two together. He gives you the understanding. He gives you the wisdom. He gives you the knowledge. And I think without Him, me I know how people working out. So with that being said, and if nobody has anything else to add, I check in your faces, your heads, nods. All right, are you good? Okay. Thank you for to all of our viewers for joining us on this very interesting and controversial topic of divorce. I hope that what we shared here today was, beneficial to you guys. It was intriguing. It was a bit of fun. Okay, and I'm asking you guys to come back. But before you leave, like, share, comment, and subscribe to our videos. And yeah, that's it. Oh wait, hold on. I keep forgetting all there. Follow us on Instagram at Hear This Now or Hear.This Now. Find us on Facebook at Hear This Now. And yes, check out our other episodes. Share the clips. You could do clips on YouTube now. Share some clips with your friends. Get the word out there about us. We are awesome. Okay. And one last announcement I'd like to make: we are easing up on live streams for a bit, and we are introducing some shorter form content such as clips and what is it, YouTube shorts. Yes, that should be coming soon, guys. So you're not going to just be waiting for us once or twice a month. Okay, you'll be seeing much more of our faces, so be happy. All right. Thank you again for joining us. Hasta la vista, guys. Peace.